John Parker had been a single dad for nearly 6 years, and in all that time, he never once complained about the old rust-colored truck he drove every day. It rattled when he turned the key, groaned whenever he drove uphill, and the paint had long surrendered to patches of bare metal. But to John, that truck wasn't just a vehicle, it was the last thing he still had from his late father, who used it to take John fishing as a boy. Every morning, John would drive his young son Mason to school, ignoring the judgmental looks from other parents who arrived in their shiny SUVs. They whispered that the truck looked like something from a scrapyard, and some even laughed, pointing as John drove away. But he kept his head high, because for him, being a loving father mattered more than impressing strangers. 2. One rainy morning, John parked in the school drop-off lane, as always, but today the whispers felt louder, sharper, and more humiliating than usual. A group of parents huddled near the entrance, staring at his truck with smirks. He could see the humorless sparkle in their eyes as if mocking him somehow made their own lives brighter. Mason, noticing his dad's forced smile, squeezed his hand tightly. "Dad, I like our truck," he whispered, before running off toward class. John waited until Mason disappeared inside before he sighed deeply and started the engine, which coughed loudly in protest. As he drove away, he reminded himself that dignity didn't come from wealth, and love didn't come from new paint or polished chrome. Still, deep down, the constant ridicule was wearing him down more each day. While passing through town later that afternoon, John's truck sputtered and lurched before coming to a complete stop near a busy cafe. Rainwater trickled down the windshield as he tried to restart the engine, but all he got was a hollow click. People walking past glanced at him briefly before averting their eyes, as if helping a struggling man might interrupt their comfortable routines. He stepped out into the drizzle, opened the hood, and stared helplessly at the maze of old wires and faded parts. Just when he thought he couldn't feel more defeated, he heard someone approach. A woman's voice gently asked, "Do you need help?" He turned to see a well-dressed lady holding an umbrella, her eyes filled not with pity but with genuine concern. Her name was Emily Rivers, and she owned the cafe in front of which John's truck had broken down. Unlike the others who passed by, she didn't judge the rust, the dents, or the faded hood. Instead, she studied John's worried expression and sensed a story behind his tired eyes. When John explained what happened, Emily didn't hesitate, she called her personal mechanic immediately. No charge, she insisted when John tried to refuse. Nobody should struggle alone. Her kindness caught him completely off guard. He wasn't used to strangers offering help without expecting something in return. As they waited for the mechanic, Emily invited John inside for a warm drink, and for the first time in a long while, he felt seen, not judged. During their conversation, Emily learned that John worked 2 jobs to support his son and had no savings left after hospital bills for his late wife. The truck, though old, was all he had to maintain their fragile stability. Emily listened quietly, her heart tightening with every detail. She admired the strength hidden behind his soft words and the love he carried for Mason in every sentence. She realized that the world often misjudged people based on appearances, never looking deeper into the heart. John wasn't just a man with a broken truck, he was a father fighting battles no one else could see. And Emily felt strangely moved by his story, as though fate had pushed their paths together at just the right moment. When the mechanic arrived and inspected the truck, he shook his head. The repair cost would be more than the entire truck was worth. John's shoulders slumped in defeat. He knew he couldn't afford it, not even with a payment plan. Emily saw the disappointment in his eyes and made a decision on the spot, one that would change everything. She pulled the mechanic aside, whispered something, and returned to John with a calm smile. "Let me take care of it," she said softly. John was stunned. "I can't let you do that," he insisted. But Emily gently replied, "You've carried burdens for too long. Let someone help you for once." He opened his mouth to argue, but the sincerity in her eyes robbed him of words. The next morning, John returned to the cafe as Emily requested. He saw the mechanic's truck parked outside, but his old pickup was nowhere in sight. Panic fluttered in his chest until Emily stepped out, beaming with excitement. "John," she said, "come with me. She guided him around the building, and there, parked under a small shelter, was his truck, completely restored. The metal gleamed with fresh paint, the engine purred like new, the tires looked brand new, and even the interior smelled clean and polished. John froze, unable to process the transformation. It wasn't a luxury vehicle, but it was sturdy, reliable, and full of dignity. His heart swelled as tears blurred his vision. Why would you do this for me?" he whispered. Emily stepped closer and said, "Because the world needs more men like you. Men who give, who sacrifice, who show love without asking for anything in return. You deserve to be treated with the same kindness you give your son every day." John felt something break inside him, years of exhaustion, humiliation, and silent struggle melting under the warmth of her words. He tried to speak, but emotion choked him. Emily gently placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "Your story touched me," she continued softly. "And sometimes, a single act of kindness can change someone's whole direction." John looked at her with gratitude deeper than words could ever express. The news of Emily's act spread quickly around town, especially among the same parents who had mocked John for years. Now, instead of laughter, there was stunned silence and awkward guilt. People who once turned their backs now approached him with hesitant apologies. But John didn't need their approval. For the first time in years, he felt proud, not because of the restored truck, but because someone had looked past the surface and seen his true worth. Mason was overjoyed when he saw the new truck, jumping into John's arms with pure excitement. "Dad! It looks amazing," he shouted. And John, holding his son tightly, realized something he had forgotten: kindness had power. It could heal, rebuild, and restore a man's spirit. Over the next few weeks, John and Emily grew close. Their conversations became longer, their smiles warmer, and their connection deeper. She admired his resilience, he admired her compassion. The town that once mocked him now watched with curiosity as the two walked together, laughing like old friends. But to John, it wasn't about proving anyone wrong, it was about finding hope again after years of darkness. Emily had not just repaired a truck, she had restored a father's confidence, dignity, and sense of belonging. And as John drove his renewed pickup down the road with Mason beside him and Emily's number saved in his phone, he understood something powerful: sometimes, the greatest miracles come from simple acts of kindness, and they arrive when you least expect them.